Chào mừng tất cả các bạn học viên đến với buổi talk show của Lingual Speak. Hôm nay cô Thương rất là vui vì đã mời được thầy Sam, là một trong những giáo viên cừ cựu trong lĩnh vực giảng dạy tiếng Anh, và thầy đang dạy tại những trường top của Hà Nội. Và hôm nay cô Thương cũng như là thầy Sam sẽ thảo luận một chủ đề mà tất cả các bạn đang quan tâm, đó là chiến lược học tiếng Anh thông minh dành cho những người bận rộn. Hi teacher Sam, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Hello everybody, I'm Sam. I'm an English teacher, primarily working for a couple of private schools, and also work for a university in my free time. And basically I've been here for the past 6 years, and that's all you want to know about me.
Oh, there's so much to know about teacher Sam. So like, how diverse your level of your students?
I teach mostly high school students, right? And I also teach adults in the university. So I'm teaching basically everybody between the ages of 15 all the way up to maybe 60.
From 15, so like they are fully aware of their learning objective and stuff.
That's
so
true.
the teaching must be easy then?
It's tricky.
Like compared to the children?
It is tricky. Both have their own merits and demerits, right? Mm-hmm. I have taught children, but I prefer teaching adults and high school students because I came to Vietnam as a marketing professional. I got into teaching through marketing, so I prefer that age group because it's my skills are just more easily translatable in teaching adults.
Yes, makes sense. Yes. So I have heard that you're teaching adults a lot, but we want to know more about your experiences, like from the beginning day from Vietnam. How do you start with like teaching?
Well, initially it was a big challenge because I did not have my certification as a teacher. I did not know the theoretical parts, but I did know the practical parts because I was teaching in classrooms about marketing and about selling and sales strategies. But slowly I got to have my certificates, and then I was able to easily teach in a more advanced level.
Yeah, so do you know why it's so hard to learn English when you are a working adult?
Well, as a working adult, it can be tricky because of the workload management.
Yes.
For example, some of my students work for banks, right? And their schedule is ridiculously tight, and they have to work extra hours as well sometimes. So scheduling conflicts can always be there. What I try to tell them is they need to find time. For example, if they're missing a class, instead of not studying that day, they should do something to compensate for that.
Yeah.
And get in the hours, be consistent, and that way they'll be able to manage.
Yes, it's always about the time.
Yep. And consistency.
That makes them like become a little bit miserable when they learn English compared to the children.
I mean, it is always tricky to learn something new in a more advanced age,
Yes.
but it's not impossible. And the good thing about learning a language, especially English language, is that there has been so much research, right? The training ways and training facilities and training methods are so advanced that they don't have to spend as much time as they would do in the past. So now they can watch entertainment shows and still learn, right? They could, immerse themselves in a more English-speaking environment. They could speak in English with their children. They could speak in English with their friends. They would try to talk to themselves in English language. That way, they can get more practice.
But some people still talk to me, like some of my adult students say, they concerned that they are too old to learn the language. They pass it like the prime time, like the window of learning, you know that term?
Yep.
Like when the children, they got the window of learning, they learn everything so fast, but now they like 20-something, 30-something, it's so hard.
People will be surprised, what our brains are capable of. We can learn anything pretty much at any given age. If we keep telling ourselves that we are too old and we cannot learn, we will not learn. But if we are more open to the idea of learning, you can learn pretty much any skill at any age. there's sky's the limit to learning. I've seen grown-ups, like much older people who have learned a new language after their retirement.
Right.
One of my friends got married fairly recently, and he started learning Vietnamese language, and he speaks very well now. And he's 68 years old.
That's cool.
Right.
I have one student who is French, and he tried to learn Vietnamese.
Yeah.
But he learned pretty quick because he surrounded himself with Vietnamese, and he consumed Vietnamese every day.
Absolutely.
So I think that's possible too.
It is possible, yeah.
And now when I come to realize that I've been learning French when I'm 23 years old before I went to Paris, and I spent a year of learning French, and it seemed not too difficult to me because
It's not?
Yeah. I guess it's the age no longer a problem.
I think, in this particular case, because you speak Vietnamese and French, there are so many, common terms, so many words and phrases that are so common in the both languages. So it just makes it so much easier.
Also, I think because I learned English already, and English is like a universal language, and so it shares so many similarities with other Latin language like French and Spanish, maybe, I'm not sure. So like when I got English, it's easier for me to learn any other language.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Cool. So as a teacher, can you name some of the difficulties that your students have in your class?
All right, so aside from, obvious shyness, sometimes they're
Yes.
shy, which is a very common issue, but it's just what we call a symptom. Actual problem is deeper within, so
Yeah.
it's the fear of being judged.
Right.
So if you make a mistake and you fear that other people will judge you based on your level of communication, so that is one. The second is, again, for my particular students, who are mostly adults, right, it's the time management stuff. So it's difficult for them to be consistent. So because they're working full time, they have house chores to do, they have children to raise, so finding time to study can be a bit tricky. So what I try to do is record my lessons and send them the recording so they can at least go through it and do their homework assignments in order to keep up with whatever we study in the class.
Okay, so yeah, I heard I heard people say all the time, but like adult students, usually they come to class and they super tired and drained on,
Right.
super burnt out from work and from life.
Yeah.
So anyway, like, have you ever confronted the student like refuse to learn at all? And there's nothing you can help with that? Because they're so tired.
There are days when they feel like particularly extra tired, you could say, or too exhausted to the point that they're unable to concentrate and focus. So what I try to do is, on those days, I do have some extra activities which are, you could say, less learning intensive, but more towards the fun side, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have to think so much. They don't have to put pressure on their minds. I try to incorporate the games and learning together. So even when we are playing the game, they get to use their knowledge in a more fun and relaxed manner.
Yeah.
This way they are able to overcome their shyness and overcome their exhaustion and have more of a fun time. Yeah.
Yes, it's because learning is to use in daily life, and there's not all day, not every day they will be busy and up to their task. Some days they just relax and communicate in English at home with their friends. So those kind of lessons would be like helpful.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so talking about class, not just offline one, but online one now, I see many students, they choose online class because of convenience and they're like so tight working schedules. Do you think that online class is harder to teach or harder for students to engage?
It's definitely not harder, but it does require more preparation.
Oh, yes.
On a teacher's part. We had more online classes during the pandemic, right?
Right.
Pretty much 100% of my classes were online. So that gave me the opportunity to be a bit more creative with my lessons. So, for example, I found some games which I would not be able to play in an actual classroom, but because of the technological aids, we can say, I was able to incorporate those games in the lessons, and the kids had a fantabulous time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's in terms of teaching. How about in terms of learning? Do students find it harder to learn in online class?
Well, to be honest, the world is moving towards online learning.
Right.
Because for my studies, for my own personal studies, when I was studying my MBA, my last 2 semesters were 100% online because of the pandemic. And I found it to be a little bit more, you could say, stressful, in a sense that I had to make sure that my connection is fine. I had to make sure I was in a good reception area. I had to make sure that I was in a quiet environment. So once you take care of all of those elements, then it becomes relatively easier.
Yeah.
In fact, nothing can be better than learning from the comfort of your home.
Yeah, with the pajamas and coffee, right?
Yes.
Yes, it just take a little
That's
bit effort.
how pretty much I taught as well, because I had a formal shirt on, and I will not tell what I was wearing on my bottom. Yeah.
Like, I know, like, I used to be online student too, and I prefer that experience because it depends on how much you've been prepared and how much you really want to learn, and it doesn't matter if that's online or offline.
True.
Yeah.
Learning has no boundaries, to be honest. So
Sure.
if you are committed to learn, you will make it work.
Right.
It's the same with, let's say, going to the gym, for example. If you're committed to making a change in your lifestyle, being fitter, you have to be consistent at it.
Yes.
You have to make your effort. Let's say if it's raining and you're unable to go to the gym, do something in your house, right? You can do some body weight exercises and stuff. When you do those things, you keep yourself committed to a program. It's the same way with our education. If you're unable to, let's say, study online or offline, do something to compensate for that, and it goes for whichever medium you study.
Yeah.
Online or offline.
I mean, online platform give us freedom.
A lot of freedom.
I would choose online, yes, myself. Yes. So in class, what is the most common problem that students have in learning?
Okay, in learning, I would say that it's just finding time and, of course, being consistent with it.
Yes.
So for finding time, for example, a lot of students have excuses for not showing up, right? It could be an odd rain. It could be, being extremely tired from work or from school. So it can be tricky, to bring them to the classroom consistently.
Yes. So like some students in my class, they even have a really crazy excuse, like they have a bad hair day. They don't feel good. They broke up with their girlfriend, boyfriend. So all sort of excuses.
Right.
Right. But I guess they don't have the amount of time to put on the learning, so that's
it's actually more to do with motivation, right? So even if you're having a bad day, that should not stop you from learning, right? Theoretically.
Shouldn't.
Getting out there and doing something and committing to it is difficult. But our job as teachers is to motivate, right? If they're having a bad day, tell them to just come over, and even if they don't want to study, just be in the classroom, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have to respond, they just show up, and more often than not, they do actually end up participating in class, right? So instead of dwelling on your problems, it's better to address your problems and confront them and learn.
Yes, so that is finding the time and being consistency. So how's your student perform on that part?
That's the thing. So consistency, right?
Yeah.
Just like working out in a gym, right? You go one time, you don't see a difference. You go for a week, you may feel a difference, but you don't see it. But then only after 3 or 4 months, you begin to actually see differences. And then after 6 or so months, other people start to see the differences, right? It's the same with your language.
Yeah.
You have to be consistent. You have to put in the hours. And the more consistent you are, the more hardworking you are, the sooner you'll get to your results.
Many of my students complain that they don't see their differences, their improvement.
Yeah.
So they feel demotivated of that.
True.
So it's hard to keep the consistency when they don't see any improvements.
Well, we have.
That's the same to your students.
Sometimes, yes, but I do give them the same example, right?
Right.
You start any sport, you start anything. It takes a while for your muscles to get used to it.
Right.
And brain is the largest organ of your, not the largest, but it's the most important organ of your body, right? It's the most complex organ of your body. So in order to train your brain and in order to train your muscles to communicate, you have to put in the hours, you have to put in the effort. Some people are more talented than others, so you will see some students learning faster and improving faster, but others may take a little while, longer than average.
Yeah.
So we should never be discouraged, and as teachers, our job is to motivate as well. So what I try to do is find time to appreciate them, and appreciate them, give them responses. The moment they give you a correct answer, applaud them, appreciate them. This way they'll stay motivated to learn more.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, because if they feel too hard on themselves, they put too much pressure on themselves, and it's hard to see any improvement. Like they neglect all of that.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, so that is about like the principle of being available at classes and being consistent. But I want to hear more, and I believe that students here want to hear more. What actually we can do to find the time in learning English?
There's a very popular saying. It says, well, the saying goes like this: a man who fails to plan plans to fail. So you have to plan your day, right? Have to plan your week. So it's all about smaller victories. So take a day as a project, make the maximum out of it, go to bed feeling satisfied with what you've achieved and done, right? So make a plan. Think about what you're going to learn that day. Think of the questions you're going to ask your teacher, and think of the assignments and stuff. I know it can be overwhelming in the beginning, but the more organized you are, and the more consistent you try to be, there's a very little chance you'll ever fail.
Yes, I agree. That's something I do too. I will write my like to-do list before I go to bed.
Perfect.
That I guess you can do the same when learning English. So write a to-do, learning things.
That's true. That's true.
So like you can go to sleep with that thoughts in mind, and the next day morning when you always find the time. Like even 5 minutes in breakfast, you can listen to the podcast, right? So you can watch the short videos. Actually, you can watch my TikTok video, like less than 1 minute, right? Less than 1 minute.
That is brilliant. Yep.
Yeah, we can always find the time, but that's more importantly that you have the plan.
Absolutely. So if you have a program and you stick to it, you will be successful.
Yeah.
And like I said before, and like you said, 5 minutes in the morning,
It works.
it will not kill you. It will be, you could say more convenient. But just 5 minutes a day can make a big difference over, let's say, a period of 1 year.
Right. Yeah, I also heard that 1% better every day is make the progress way better at the end of the year.
1% a day would be 300 something percent, 365% a year.
I forgot.
So that's a lot. Yeah,
terrible.
that's a lot of progress.
Yeah, so how can an adult learn English at home in the most effective way? Do you have any suggestions?
Yes, so the idea would be to immerse yourself in English surroundings. But obviously it's not possible if you're living in a non-English speaking environment, right? So what you do is let's say a simple tip, you're learning vocabulary, and there are so many words you're yet to learn. For example, vocabulary of objects in your house. And the objects in your house are the objects you deal with hardly every day. So what I would suggest is write down the English word for it and put it on that thing, and then instead of calling it by the Vietnamese name or your local language name, you can call it with the English name, because you can see the name on the post-it on that object. So you may call it a pillow, but the actual word would be a cushion. So you write down cushion, and just after calling it a couple of times, you will remember it forever. That's one. Another thing you can do is, let's say you're watching movies and stuff. One of the best ways to learn a new language is through listening. We have two eyes and 2 ears for the purpose of learning. It just got one mouth, so we should listen twice as much, right?
Right.
So what you could do, or what we could do, is, let's say we're watching movies, and instead of watching it with, I'll use the term Viet sub, Instead of that, try to listen, right? Turn the subtitles off. Don't even put them in English. Just listen. Train your ears to listen. This way you'll see a massive improvement because you'll be focusing more on the words and on the accents and on the colloquial terms, and you'll make references to whatever's happening in the scene. And this way you'll be able to understand a lot more over time.
Yeah.
Compared to just reading the movie like a comic book.
I remember my first year at university, I learned English by binging Friends. And I binged so many type of series, film, and I couldn't name all of them now. But it works. Like I turn off subtitle and I just immerse myself in that living. I live in the story.
You know, one of the biggest concerns that my students have, like when they speak English, they say, they don't have enough vocabulary.
Right.
And then vocabulary, in fact, I have to admit that is the part that is so important in when you convey the idea and the message. So do you have any tips that can help a student to learn vocabulary better?
Okay, so the first thing, of course, is to remember that vocabulary, though important, is not everything, right? So if you don't know the word, you can make a sentence that describes that word.
Yeah.
This way you'll understand or you'll know what you're trying to say. The second thing is, if you come across a word, try to not only understand the meaning, but try to use it in a sentence and ask your teacher if you're using it right. If you use it in a sentence for, let's say, a few times, you will be able to remember that word forever.
Yes.
Okay, so making simple sentences with a new word, the best way to learn.
Yes. I remember I read somewhere in an article, if you use a word in 5 different times, in 5 different circumstances, you remember it forever.
You should, yeah. Because you're practically now using the word, and it becomes a part of your vocabulary bank, we can say. And it's the recalling thing that we do. So we do almost all of us have very good memories, but it's just the recalling thing that's where we struggle with. So if we are able to recall the word when we need it and practice it a few times, it's going to be all right. Okay, so in just a few minutes, we're going to start a lesson. It's actually about vocabulary. Yay. So we're going to learn a few words, and it's a small little fun activity, short lesson, and I hope that the words you'll learn today will stick with you forever.
Yeah, I'm sure that students are very looking forward to that. And we will learn vocabulary with teacher Sam.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Stay tuned.